Welcome to the captivating realm of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss any of our exciting new stories. Enjoy the journey.
Mark's eyes snapped open, his heart racing. The bed beside him was cold, empty. He bolted upright, scanning the dimly lit room. "Nara?" he called out, his voice shaky. Silence. He stumbled out of bed, checked the bathroom, the kitchen, the living room. Nothing. No note, no message, no sign of struggle. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. Mark's mind whirled. How could she just leave after 8 years together, after Leia? His heart clenched. How would he explain this to their daughter? Right on cue, a small voice came from the hallway. "Dad? Where's Mom?" Mark turned to see Leia standing there, her blue skin practically glowing in the early morning light. Her large violet eyes were filled with confusion and worry. He swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Hey, sweetheart. Mom had to go away for a little while. But don't worry, okay? Everything's going to be fine." Leia's lower lip trembled. But why didn't she say goodbye? Mark knelt down, pulling her into a tight hug. "I don't know, honey. I don't know." Days turned into weeks. Mark threw himself into his work at the engineering firm, doing his best to keep things normal for Leia. But the whispers and stares were becoming impossible to ignore. One afternoon, as Mark picked Leia up from school, he noticed a group of parents huddled together, casting sidelong glances their way. "There they are." One woman whispered, loud enough to hear. "I told you, it's not natural. That child isn't human." "I heard the mother took off." Another muttered, "Can't say I blame her." Mark's jaw clenched as he gripped Leia's hand tighter, hurrying them to the car. "Dad?" Leia's voice was small. "Why don't the other kids want to play with me anymore?" Mark's heart broke. He knelt down to look into her eyes. "Some people are just afraid of what they don't understand, sweetheart. But that's their problem, not yours. You're perfect exactly as you are." Leia nodded, though her eyes were filled with doubt. That night, a loud knock at the door jolted Mark awake. He glanced at the clock, 2:37 a.m. His stomach twisted as he went to the door. Through the peephole, he saw two men in dark suits standing outside, their faces stern. Government agents. Mark's pulse quickened. He cracked open the door, keeping the chain in place. "Can I help you?" The taller agent held up a badge. "Mr. Reeves, we're with the Department of Extraterrestrial Affairs. We need to speak with you about your daughter." Mark's blood went cold. "It's the middle of the night. This isn't appropriate." The shorter agent narrowed his eyes. "Mr. Reeves, I'm sure you understand the unique nature of your situation. It would be in everyone's best interest if you cooperated." "Come back with a warrant," Mark growled, slamming the door shut. He leaned against it, his heart racing. This was getting worse faster than he'd feared. The next morning, Mark sat Leia down for a serious talk. "Honey, remember how we practiced keeping your emotions under control?" Leia nodded seriously. "Because sometimes, when I get upset, weird things happen." "That's right," Mark said gently. "It's more important than ever that you try to stay calm, no matter what anyone says or does." But children can be cruel, and Leia's unique appearance made her an easy target. A week later, Mark got a frantic call from the school. He arrived to find chaos. The entire building's electrical system had shorted out. In the center of it all stood Leia. Tears streaming down her face, surrounded by a faint blue glow. They wouldn't stop, she sobbed as Mark scooped her up. "They called me a freak. Said I should go back to my own planet. I didn't mean to, Dad. I'm sorry." Mark held her close, his mind racing. This was the last straw. They couldn't stay here any longer. That night, after Leia had finally fallen asleep, Mark made a series of calls. He liquidated their assets, called in every favor he was owed. By morning, he had secured an old freighter, the Wanderer, and enough supplies to get them off-world. As he packed their things, a wave of guilt washed over him. Was he doing the right thing, taking Leia away from everything she'd known? But he remembered the fear in her eyes, the hostility of their neighbors, the government agents at their door. No, Earth wasn't safe for them anymore. And maybe, just maybe, they'd find answers about Nera out there among the stars. At dawn, Mark gently shook Leia awake. Time to go, sweetheart. We're going on an adventure. Leia rubbed her eyes, looking confused. Where are we going? Mark managed a small smile. To find your mom, and to find a place where you can be yourself, without having to hide or be afraid. As they boarded the Wanderer, Leia clutched her favorite stuffed animal tightly. Dad! Are you scared? Mark paused, then nodded. A little. But you know what? It's okay to be scared sometimes. The important thing is that we're together. The ship's engines roared to life. Through the view screen, Earth grew smaller and smaller until it was just another twinkling light in the vastness of space. Mark took a deep breath, setting course for the unknown. Hold on tight, kiddo. Our adventure is just beginning. The first few days aboard the Wanderer were a whirlwind of activity. Mark threw himself into retrofitting the old freighter, transforming cramped cargo holds into livable spaces. Leia followed him, her curiosity momentarily outweighing her sadness at leaving Earth. Dad, what does this do? She asked, pointing to a panel of blinking lights. Mark grinned. That's part of the life support system. It makes sure we have air to breathe and keeps the temperature just right. Leia's eyes widened. Like a big space house. Exactly, Mark chuckled. And look over here, this is going to be your room. He led her to a small chamber he'd outfitted with a bunk, some storage compartments, and a desk. On the wall, he'd installed a hollow projector that could display different planetary landscapes. Leia's face lit up. It's perfect. For a moment, Mark allowed himself to hope. Maybe this crazy plan could work. But as the novelty wore off, reality began to set in. The vastness of space was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Mark found himself lying awake at night, doubts creeping in. What if they never found Nera? What if something happened to the ship? How could he possibly keep Leia safe out here? One evening, as they sat in the makeshift galley eating reconstituted meals, Leia pushed her food around listlessly. What's wrong, sweetheart? Mark asked. I'm not hungry, Leia shrugged. I miss my friends and Grandma and Grandpa. When are we going back home? Mark's heart sank. Leia. Earth isn't our home anymore. I know it's hard to understand, but we had to leave to keep you safe. Because I'm a freak. Leia muttered, her lower lip trembling. Hey, Mark said firmly, reaching across the table to hold her hand. You are not a freak. You're special. And someday, we'll find a place where everyone sees that. Leia nodded, but Mark could see the doubt in her eyes. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. How about we do something fun after dinner? We could watch one of those old Earth movies you like. A small smile crept onto Leia's lips. Can we watch the one with the singing ice princess again? Mark groaned playfully. If we must. But I get to pick next time. As they settled in to watch the movie, Leia curled up against Mark's side. He wrapped an arm around her, marveling at how small and vulnerable she felt in that moment. He silently renewed his vow to protect her, no matter what. Weeks passed as they drifted through the star systems closest to Earth. Mark had heard rumors of an ozone outpost on a remote moon, but so far, their search had turned up nothing but dead ends. One afternoon, as Mark was running diagnostics on the ship's propulsion system, a proximity alarm blared through the Wanderer. He rushed to the cockpit, heart pounding. A massive ship loomed before them, easily 10 times the size of the Wanderer, with a sleek design unlike anything Mark had ever seen. Dad. Leia's voice trembled as she joined him at the view screen. What? What is that? Before Mark could respond, a crackling voice came through the ship's comm system. The language was foreign, a mix of musical tones and rhythmic clicks. "We come in peace," Mark managed, fumbling with the controls. "We're just passing through, no trouble." The response from the alien ship was swift. A shimmering energy field wrapped around the Wanderer, shutting down all systems. Panic welled up in Mark's chest as the larger vessel started pulling them in. He glanced at Leia, whose wide eyes showed her fear. "It's going to be okay," he said, forcing a calm tone. "Whatever happens, we'll stick together." "All right." Leia nodded and gripped his hand tightly as the Wanderer was pulled into the alien ship's docking bay. Mark's thoughts raced. Had they finally found a lead on Nera and Ilarios, or had they just leapt from the frying pan into the fire? As the docking bay doors sealed behind them, one thing was certain: their lives were about to take a drastic turn. With a pressurized hiss, the docking bay depressurized. Mark moved protectively in front of Leia, his heart pounding. The Wanderer's hatch groaned open, revealing 3 towering metallic beings. "Welcome, travelers," the central figure spoke, its voice a harmonious hum. "I am Zontair of the Celestial Concordant. We detected the primitive warp signature of your vessel and were intrigued." Mark swallowed. "We mean no harm. We're only seeking information about." Zontair raised a silvery appendage. "All will be explained in time. Follow us, please." As they walked through the bright, polished corridors, Leia tugged at her father's sleeve. "Dad," she whispered. "I can feel them. There." The Celestials, excited but also worried. Mark blinked in surprise. Leia's empathic powers seemed to be growing day by day. The Celestials, as they called themselves, were actually scholars and explorers. They were intrigued by Leia's unique genetic makeup and offered to aid Mark in his search for answers about Nera and Ilarios. "Your timing is fortuitous," Zontair explained. As they gathered in a vast observatory. "We're en route to the Andromeda Conference, a gathering of species from across known space. Perhaps you'll find the answers you seek there." Mark hesitated. This seemed almost too good to be true. "And what would you want in return?" Zontair's eyes glowed slightly. "Merely the chance to study your daughter's abilities. Nothing invasive, I assure you." Leia looked up at Mark, a mixture of excitement and apprehension on her face. He sighed. "We'll think about it." The Andromeda Conference was overwhelming. Thousands of alien species crowded a massive space station, exchanging knowledge and trading goods. Mark held Leia's hand tightly as they wove through the bustling corridors. "Remember," he reminded her, "stay close to me. And if you start feeling overwhelmed, I know, Dad," Leia interrupted, rolling her eyes. "Deep breaths and focus on my center, just like you taught me." Mark smiled despite himself. She was growing up so fast. As they wandered, they encountered beings of all shapes and sizes. Some avoided Leia, while others were drawn to her with curiosity. Mark was constantly alert, ready to whisk her away at any sign of danger. One afternoon, as they examined a stall selling exotic fruits, a commotion erupted nearby. A group of reptilian aliens had cornered a small, furry creature, a thief, it seemed. "You'll pay for this deceit," one of the reptilians hissed. Without a second thought, Leia slipped free from Mark's grasp and ran towards the scene. "Stop!" she called, positioning herself between the two groups. Mark's heart pounded in fear. "Leia, no!" But it was too late. As the reptilians approached, Leia's eyes began to glow. A wave of calm spread over the area, making the aggressors hesitate and draw back. What's happening?" one of them murmured. Leia's voice was steady. "You're angry and afraid, but fighting won't solve it. Please, talk it over." To Mark's astonishment, the tension faded. The reptilians and the small creature began talking, resolving the misunderstanding. As the crowd dispersed, Mark hurried to Leia's side. That was incredibly risky, he said, even as pride filled him. Leia grinned. But it worked, Dad. I think I'm getting better at controlling it. Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair. Just let me know next time, alright? As word of Leia's abilities spread, they received more visitors, some offering friendship, others with darker motives. One evening, as they prepared to rest in their temporary quarters, a sharp knock broke the silence. Mark tensed, reaching for the makeshift weapon he had hidden nearby. Who's there? He called. A familiar voice responded. It's Cadence. I can help you find what you're looking for. Mark opened the door slightly to see a slender, blue-skinned woman. His breath caught. She looked so much like Nera. My name is Zara, she said. Zara glanced nervously down the hallway before speaking. I'm from Arios, and we need to talk. Mark hesitated, then stepped aside, letting her in. Leia emerged from her room, her eyes bright with curiosity. Zara's expression softened at the sight of her. Oh, little one, you look so much like your mother. Leia's face lit up. You knew my mom. Where is she? Why did she leave us? Mark placed a reassuring hand on Leia's shoulder. Let's hear what Zara has to say first, okay? Taking a deep breath, Zara began. I wish I had better news. Arios, it's in the middle of a civil war. Your mother, Nera, is one of the rebel leaders. Mark's mind spun. A war? Why didn't she tell me? Why did she leave us? Zara's expression turned somber. To protect you both. The government of Arios, they're harsh toward those they view as traitors. If they knew about Leia. She didn't finish the sentence, but her meaning was clear. Leia could be seen as either a valuable asset or a dangerous threat. Mark clenched his jaw. So what do we do now? We can't just stay here while Nera's in danger. Zara nodded. That's why I came. I'm part of a network that smuggles supplies to the rebels. I can take you to Arios, but it won't be easy or safe. Leia tugged on Mark's sleeve. Dad, we have to go. We have to help Mom. Mark knelt down, looking into his daughter's determined eyes. Leia, this isn't a game. It could be very dangerous. I know, she replied solemnly, but I'm not afraid. We're stronger together, remember? Mark felt a mix of pride and fear swell in his chest. Turning to Zara, he asked, when do we leave? The journey to Arios was filled with danger. They narrowly avoided detection by government patrols, depending on Zara's expertise and Leia's emerging abilities to slip past checkpoints. During quiet moments aboard Zara's cramped smuggling vessel, Mark found himself opening up to her. She listened patiently as he spoke of his life with Nera, the joy of Leia's birth, and the pain of being left behind. Nera never wanted to leave you, Zara assured him one night over a meal of bland rations. But the cause? It consumed her. She believed that by fighting, she was giving Leia a better future. Mark's grip tightened around his cup. But what about Leia's present? All these months, watching her struggle, feeling like she doesn't belong. Zara reached out, placing a hand on his. You've done an amazing job, Mark. Leia is strong, compassionate, and brave. That's because of you. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, Mark felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in years. He quickly looked away, a pang of guilt pulling at him. Leia's powers continued to reveal themselves in unexpected ways. She could now move small objects with her mind and project her feelings onto others. One day, she excitedly exclaimed, Dad, look! As she levitated a wrench across the engine room. Mark watched her with a blend of awe and concern. That's incredible, sweetheart, but remember our talk. We need to be cautious about who witnesses your abilities. Leia's expression shifted to disappointment. I know. I just wish I didn't have to hide all the time. Mark hugged her tightly. I understand, kiddo. I hope one day you won't have to. Their moment was interrupted by Zara's urgent voice over the intercom. We have company. A government cruiser is on an intercept course. Mark's heart raced as he rushed to the cockpit, with Leia following closely behind. Through the view screen, he spotted a massive warship approaching them. Can we escape? He asked as he secured himself in. Zara's hands flew over the controls. Not a chance. Our only hope is to lose them in the shattered moons. As they plunged into a dense field of asteroid fragments, laser fire erupted around them. The ship shuddered with each near miss. Dad, Leia whispered, I think I can help. Before Mark could object, Leia closed her eyes, concentrating. The air around her shimmered with a faint blue light. Suddenly, the pursuing ship's weapons went silent. Zara gasped in disbelief. Their systems are completely offline. Taking advantage of the confusion, Zara navigated them deeper into the asteroid field. Within minutes, they had evaded their pursuers. As the adrenaline faded, Mark turned to Leia, who sat exhausted but smiling weakly. I did it, Dad, she murmured before falling asleep. Mark brushed a strand of hair from her face, feeling a complex mix of pride, fear, love, and the realization that his daughter was becoming something far beyond his imagination. As Aros loomed before them, Mark prepared himself for whatever challenges awaited. For Leia's sake, and Nera's, he had to be ready for anything. As Zara's ship descended through Aros's swirling atmosphere, Mark's grip tightened on Leia's hand. The planet's surface revealed a patchwork of lush forests and shining cities, marked by scorch marks and ruins. We'll need to land outside the capital, Zara explained, her voice tense. The rebels control most of the outer regions, but the government still holds the city center. They landed in a secluded valley hidden by dense foliage. Upon disembarking, a group of blue-skinned figures emerged from the trees, weapons drawn. Stand down! Zara shouted. I've brought them. The leader stepped forward, his eyes widening as he spotted Leia. By the moons, he gasped, it's true, Nera's child. Mark instinctively pulled Leia closer. Where is Nera? We need to see her. The rebel's expression darkened. Follow me. There's much to discuss. They were led to a hidden base carved into the side of a mountain. As they walked through bustling corridors, Mark noticed the determination and exhaustion on the faces around them. These people were pushed to their limits. In a dimly lit strategy room, they met the rebel leadership. An older woman with intricate facial markings stepped forward. I am Kayla, the second in command of the resistance, she stated, her voice carrying authority. Nera has told us much about you, Mark, and you, young one, are the embodiment of hope for our people. Mark's patience wore thin. Where is Nera? Why isn't she here? Kayla exchanged a glance with Zara before continuing. Nera was captured during a raid on a government facility 3 cycles ago. We've been unable to rescue her. The word struck Mark like a physical blow. Leia tightened her grip on his hand, her eyes brimming with tears. Then we'll get her out, Mark asserted, his voice resolute. Kayla shook her head. It's not that simple. The facility where she's held is impenetrable. We've lost good people trying. Leia stepped forward, her small frame exuding unexpected strength. I can help. My powers, I can use them. The room fell silent, all eyes on the young girl. Kayla knelt to Leia's level. Child, do you understand the danger? The government would do anything to capture you if they realized what you could do. Leia's chin lifted defiantly. I'm not afraid. Mom needs us. Mark felt a mix of pride and fear swell within him. He knew there would be no dissuading her. If we do this, he said to Kayla, we do it as a family. Kayla nodded solemnly. Very well. We'll begin planning right away. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Mark immersed himself in learning about Aros, its technology, and tactics while Leia trained with the rebels to enhance her abilities. One evening, as Mark studied facility schematics, Zara approached him. "You should rest," she said gently. "You won't be of any use if you're exhausted." Mark rubbed his eyes, weighed down by sleepless nights. "I can't." Every moment we waste, Zara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Nera is strong. She'll hold on until we arrive." Their eyes locked for a moment. The tension between them filled with unspoken possibilities. Mark cleared his throat, looking away. "Thank you, Zara, for everything." She smiled sadly. "Get some rest, Mark. Tomorrow, we change the course of history." The plan was bold, bordering on reckless. Using Leia's abilities to disable the facility's defenses, a small team would infiltrate and extract Nera. Mark insisted on being part of the strike team, despite Kayla's objections. As they prepared to depart, Mark knelt before Leia. "Remember to stay close to Zara. If anything goes wrong, it won't," Leia interrupted, her jaw set in determination. "We're going to save Mom and come back together. I can feel it." Mark pulled her into a tight hug. Mark blinked back tears as he gazed at his daughter, his heart overflowing with love. "I love you, kiddo, more than anything in this universe." "I love you too, Dad," Leia replied, her voice steady even amid the turmoil around them. The mission commenced under the cloak of night, tension crackling in the air. Concealed within a transport alongside Zara and a protective detail, Leia focused her energy, using her powers to methodically disable the facility's security systems. As they moved deeper into the shadows, Mark and the strike team pressed forward, surprisingly encountering little resistance along the way. However, the calm was abruptly shattered as alarms blared throughout the facility, signaling their discovery. Kayla's voice crackled urgently over the comms, slicing through the tension. "You need to move faster." Mark's heart raced, the weight of his responsibility heavy as they approached the detention level. Rounding a corner, they were met with a squad of heavily armed guards. "Take cover." Mark shouted, instinctively pushing Leia and Zara behind him as energy blasts filled the air. The ensuing firefight was intense but brief. Their training kicked in, and with strategic precision, they dispatched the guards. Just as the last guard fell, a familiar voice weakly called out from one of the cells, "Nera." He gasped, rushing forward. There she was, battered but alive. As the cell door slid open, their eyes locked, conveying a mix of relief and urgency. "Mark," she breathed, her voice strained yet filled with emotion. "You came." But before he could respond, the facility trembled violently from a massive explosion. Kayla's frantic voice burst through the comms, "They found Leia. We're under heavy attack." Mark's blood ran cold as panic surged through him. He turned to Nera, torn between the woman he had searched for across the galaxy and the daughter who desperately needed him. Nera's eyes flashed with determination. "Go save our daughter." "I'll follow right behind you," she urged, her voice unwavering despite the chaos. With a quick nod, Mark sprinted back the way they had come. His heart pounding in his ears as he emerged from the facility. What awaited him was pure pandemonium. Rebel and government forces clashed fiercely in the sky and on the ground. In the distance, he spotted Leia's transport encircled by enemy troops, a blue glow pulsating from the vehicle, intensifying with each heartbeat. Suddenly, a shockwave of energy erupted from the transport, sweeping through the area and rendering every piece of technology useless. Government ships plummeted from the sky, their lights flickering out, and weapons fell silent in the eerie aftermath. Mark dashed towards the transport, desperation driving him forward. "Leia!" he cried out, his voice filled with urgency. The door swung open, and Leia stumbled out, supported by Zara. Her skin was pale, her breathing labored, but her eyes sparkled with triumph. "Dad," she managed weakly, a faint smile breaking through her exhaustion. "I did it. I saved everyone." Overcome with emotion, Mark enveloped her in his arms, tears of relief and pride clouding his vision. "You absolutely did, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you," he whispered, cherishing the moment as they shared an unspoken bond. The aftermath of the battle unfolded chaotically. With their technology crippled and their leader captured, the government forces quickly surrendered, marking a significant victory for the rebels. Amid the celebrations, however, Mark received the devastating news he had dreaded. Nera hadn't escaped the facility. She had sacrificed herself to ensure the others could flee, using her powers to collapse the building onto the remaining government forces, a final act of heroism that sealed her fate. As Mark broke the news to Leia, he braced himself for the wave of grief that would surely come. But instead of tears, he found quiet determination in her eyes, a spark of resolve ignited by her mother's sacrifice. "Mom knew what she was fighting for," Leia said softly, her voice steady. "Now it's up to us to finish what she started." The weight of those words settled heavily on Mark's shoulders, igniting a fierce resolve within him. In the days that followed, as Arios embarked on the long journey of healing and rebuilding, Mark and Leia found themselves at a crossroads. They could return to Earth, to the life they had once known, or they could stay and help forge a new future for this world that was a part of Leia's heritage. In the end, the decision was clear, and they chose to stay. 5 years later, Mark stood on the balcony of their home in the Ozan capital, watching the twin suns sink below the horizon. The city below buzzed with life, a vibrant testament to how far they had come. "Dad." Leia called from inside. "Zara says dinner's ready." Mark smiled as he turned to see his now 12-year-old daughter, who had grown significantly, not just in height but in confidence and control over her abilities. Over the years, she had transformed into a symbol of hope for the Ozan people, a bridge between two worlds. As they sat down to dinner, Mark surveyed the table filled with familiar faces. There was Zara, who had become more than just an ally. There were friends they had made among the rebels, now respected leaders in the new government, and there was Leia, her blue skin glowing in the fading light, her eyes bright with the promise of the future. This wasn't the life Mark had ever envisioned for himself, yet it was undeniably beautiful. There were still challenges, still moments of heartache when he thought of Nera and the sacrifices that had brought them here. Yet, as he looked at his unusual, beautiful family, he knew they had found where they truly belonged, a sanctuary built from love and resilience. Later that night, as the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in brilliant hues, Mark and Leia stood together on the balcony. "Do you ever miss Earth?" Leia asked, leaning against him, her voice contemplative. Mark pondered the question, memories flooding his mind. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But then I look around and see everything we've built here, everything you've accomplished, and I know we're exactly where we're meant to be." Leia smiled up at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight above. "We're home, aren't we, Dad?" Mark pulled her close, his heart swelling with love and pride. "Yeah, kiddo, we're home." As the first stars began to twinkle in the Arios sky, Mark felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. Their journey had been long and fraught with danger, but it had led them here, to a place where they could be true to themselves, where Leia could grow into the extraordinary person she was meant to be. Whatever challenges the future held, they would face them together, a family forged across the stars, bound by love, sacrifice, and the endless possibilities of the universe. As the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Mark and Leia felt a newfound sense of purpose settle within them. The peace they had fought so hard to achieve was fragile, and both knew that rebuilding was only the beginning. With their home now a symbol of hope and resilience, they were determined to ensure that Nera's sacrifice had not been in vain. In the months that followed, Mark took on a leadership role among the rebel council, working closely with Zara and other former rebels to establish a new government that prioritized the well-being of all citizens. Leia, harnessing her powers and growing skills, trained alongside other gifted individuals, learning to master her abilities while mentoring younger children who looked up to her as a beacon of hope. She knew that her journey was just beginning. One day, while Leia was practicing her skills in a training facility, she felt an unusual disturbance in the Force, a dark energy that sent shivers down her spine. Sensing something was amiss, she immediately sought out Mark, her heart racing. "Dad, I felt something wrong. There's a darkness gathering," Leia said, urgency lacing her words as they met in the council chamber. Mark's brow furrowed with concern. "What do you mean? Can you describe it?" "It's hard to explain. It's like a shadow creeping over everything we've built. I think it might be a remnant of the old regime, or worse, someone trying to seize control again," Leia explained. Her voice steady yet filled with apprehension. Mark took a deep breath, recalling the chaos they had escaped. "We need to investigate. We can't allow anything to threaten our new home." He gathered a small team of trusted allies, including Zara, to help Leia track down the source of the disturbance. As they set out, the atmosphere was heavy with tension. Leia led the way, her senses heightened, guiding them through the streets of the city that was once filled with conflict but now buzzed with hope. They followed the dark energy to a derelict sector of the city, a place long abandoned after the war. What they discovered was more than they had anticipated. A clandestine group of former government loyalists was rallying under the guise of rebuilding their old regime. Fueled by the resentment and bitterness of their defeat, they were gathering resources, plotting to undermine the new government, and spreading fear among the populace. "We have to stop them before they can gain traction," Zara said, her expression fierce. "We cannot let them poison the minds of our people." Mark nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "We'll gather intelligence and expose their plans to the council. The people need to know the truth." Leia's heart raced as they devised their plan. With her powers, she could infiltrate the group and gather information, but it would be dangerous. She felt a mix of fear and excitement at the prospect of confronting this new challenge. "I can do it, Dad," Leia said, her resolve unwavering. "I'll be careful." Mark hesitated, worry etched on his face. "Leia, I don't want you to put yourself in harm's way. This could be risky." "I know, but if we don't act, we might lose everything we've fought for," she replied, determination shining in her eyes. "I can't let Mom's sacrifice be in vain." With a heavy heart, Mark agreed. "All right, but we'll have a team ready to back you up if anything goes wrong." That night, cloaked in shadows, Leia moved stealthily into the heart of the group's hideout. The air was thick with tension, and whispers filled the room as disgruntled former officials plotted their return to power. Leia's heart raced as she listened, taking in their plans and gathering critical information. Just as she was about to make her escape, she was spotted. "Who's there?" A voice called out, sending a chill down her spine. Without hesitating, Leia tapped into her powers, conjuring a barrier to shield herself as she darted towards the exit. "Get her!" shouted the leader of the group, and chaos erupted. As she sprinted through the darkened halls, Leia felt the adrenaline surge within her. She could hear their footsteps pounding behind her, but she refused to let fear take hold. She burst through the exit into the moonlit night, where Mark and the team awaited her. "Leia, are you all right?" Mark shouted as she emerged. Breathless but alive, "I got the information. They're planning a coup," she gasped, sharing the details she had overheard. "We need to act quickly." Mark's expression hardened with determination. "Then we'll expose them. We'll make sure everyone knows the truth." The next day, the council convened, and with Leia's evidence in hand, they presented the threat to the citizens of Arios. Mark stood alongside Leia and Zara, addressing the crowd with unwavering conviction. "We will not let fear dictate our future," he declared, his voice strong. "Together, we will protect the peace we have fought so hard to achieve. The shadows of the past will not return. We are a new generation, and we will rise above." The crowd erupted in applause, their spirits ignited by hope and resilience. With their unity strengthened, they began to dismantle the remnants of the old regime, ensuring that the future of Arios would be one of collaboration and justice. As days turned into weeks, Mark and Leia worked tirelessly alongside their allies, fortifying their new government and fostering a sense of community among the people. They established programs to support the most vulnerable, ensuring that everyone had a voice and a stake in the future of their world. Despite the ongoing challenges, they found joy in their victories, large and small. Leia flourished in her role, becoming a mentor to the next generation of leaders. Teaching them the values of compassion and understanding. One evening, as they sat together on their balcony, watching the twin suns dip below the horizon, Mark turned to Leia. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart. You've grown into an incredible leader." Leia smiled, her eyes reflecting the vibrant colors of the sky. "I learned from the best, Dad. You've shown me what it means to fight for what's right." In that moment, they both felt a deep sense of connection to Nera, knowing that her legacy lived on in their actions and their love for each other. Together, they had transformed a world once ravaged by war into a beacon of hope, a testament to the strength of family and the power of love. But as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, they also understood that their journey was far from over. New challenges would arise, but with their family forged across the stars, bound by sacrifice and love, they were ready to face whatever the universe had in store for them, and so, with hope in their hearts, Mark and Leia continued their journey, united in purpose and determined to ensure that the future they built together would shine brighter than the stars above.